Top Gun, but something happened with Top Gun 2. It was just something like the normies are back in charge after Top Gun 2. It just felt like lunatics just seemed to fade away into the background, and this movie made $1.3 billion so far. I just feel the adults are back in charge.
I really hope so. And this is why I promoted it so much. Like, I was so happy that this movie came out. I went into the cinema. I loved it. I came out feeling great. I was like, I want other people to experience that, first of all, because like I think it'll be good for their just outlook on life.
Yeah.
But also, like, I just want Hollywood to take that on board and say, like, hey, look, this kind of classic idea of like the hero that you used to love, he's back, but he's older, but he's still vital, he's still interesting, and he's still capable of doing stuff. Doesn't have to be deconstructed. He doesn't have to go through some postmodernist nightmare. That can still work. That's what people want. They just want good old-fashioned heroes that they can look up to. It's not hard. I just wish I wish I hadn't taken so long for Hollywood to realize this.
But I had to, because it's a 30-year cycle, you know, and the last time this happened was Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven. And prior to that, you had John Wayne in True Grit and everything. You know, it's like they have to go away so you appreciate them coming back. And the thing I would say, I cannot believe how Christ-like I sound tonight. You know, I know I'm a Catholic and everything, you know, but if I have to say something positive about the last 20 years, though, as well, is we've also never had as many great geek movies as well. I know there's been some crushing disappointments in there, but if you'd told me 10 years ago that I would love the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, you know, like, I mean, who could have anticipated that? You know, like, I never dreamed that we would get another Batman movie after Batman and Robin, and yet suddenly we've got all these amazing Marvel and DC movies, a Shazam movie and stuff like that. So at the same time, it's also been a wonderful time for people like us too, you know, who love this kind of culture. I mean, I remember the 90s really well, and just hoping for the best, going to see The Shadow or Rocketeer and all these kind of things. The
Rocketeer, I love that. I love the Rocketeer.
But maybe every 2 years you had a comic book movie coming out. But we've really had this wonderful period where there's maybe 5 or 6 really good ones a year. I think the mistake they've got now is there's one every week. You know, there's just, I feel as if there's a Marvel event or whatever, a superhero costume that I haven't seen before every week. So it's a bit like eating sugar all the time. You know, you definitely need to have some protein in there. I think we've got oversaturation at the moment. And I think because of that, it's peaked. I mean, for me, the Marvel thing possibly peaked in 2019 with Endgame. I think it's the phase 4 of Marvel has felt like decline. You know?
I've very much been of that mindset as well. And I was going to ask you as well, there's always that theory of genres, like how they come and go in Hollywood. Like you had the era of the Western, the war movie, whatever it might be. And they go through the stages, you know, like the early stages, the golden age, the sort of parody, and then the revisionist kind of style. You know, are we in that sort of declining phase of comic book movies? Because, you know, and I hate to say this because I know I'm talking to a comic book guy, but like after 20 years of comic book movies, I'm almost burned out on it now. I'm just at the point where I'm like, I kind of just want Hollywood to move on to something else now. Like, I feel like we've had enough superheroes. We've had enough of this stuff. There's not really much more you can do with this after dozens and dozens of films. Where can we go from here?
Here's my massive smackdown on that, right? You'll love it. Is that what you're doing is you're confusing a medium with a genre. So comic books is not just superheroes. You know, comic books is everything. It can be about anything, and they are now, which is amazing. Yeah, I mean, in the 90s, comic books was mainly superheroes, you know, but now it's anything. It's sci-fi, it's horror, it's any weird mad thing. Scott Pilgrim was a comic book. Road to Perdition was a comic book. You know what I mean? So I think to say comic book movies would end is like saying the novel to screen thing will end, because all it is a story in a particular form. Do I think the superhero thing is ending? I think it has peaked. And I think what it will do, though, is it'll take a while to really come down, because it came from such a high. $2.9 billion made from Endgame doesn't end overnight. You know, so Spider-Man No Way Home made $2 billion. You know, it's like these things are still overperforming, but at the same time, they're also underperforming. You know, so I think what the market does is it course corrects, doesn't it? You know, so when you try and bring 20 of these out a year and audiences reject 70% of them, you're eventually going to bring out less, aren't you? So I think what we're going to get is a stabilization, and over the next couple of years, they'll slow down the number of ones they do and make the ones they do special, because the ones that really stand out are the ones that do well. Same as television. I think The Boys is terrific. I really love The Boys. So what they've done there is given us a kink we haven't seen before. What we can't have anymore is formulaic, cookie cutter superhero projects. I think you have to add a little twist to it to make it interesting. And the rewards are massive if that happens. But at the same time, I'm also excited. I mean, half of my franchises, more than half of my franchises are non-superhero, and we're working on a lot of those right now. And it's really exciting because you're cutting into new territory. Like the Magic Order is a thing I'm doing. It's like The Sopranos meets Harry Potter kind of thing, It's a comic book, but it doesn't look like any Marvel movie you've ever seen, so that's one of the next things we're filming. American Jesus, the thing we're filming just now in Mexico. It's about the return of Jesus Christ as a little boy, Stand By Me, meets the Book of Revelation kind of thing. Down in Mexico, doesn't feel like any Marvel movie, So I think the opportunities are absolutely enormous still for people who work in comics if they want to have their stuff adapted into Hollywood. At the same time, there's something pretty cool about just doing comics too. I mean, I do respect people that keep it pure and don't become a whore like me.
I was going to say, I've definitely fallen into that trap of just equating comics with superheroes. Like, for me, they're synonymous, but that's an outsider looking in very much. You obviously have to look a bit deeper and realize, there's the whole ocean of stuff there, whole different genres, everything done in that format. I think when I was posing the question there, it was very much from the point of view of superhero movie and adaptations and stuff. It's for me, it feels like we've reached that point of saturation where it's we can't realistically do anything groundbreaking with this now. There needs to almost pause, a period of reflection or whatever, or just a break from it before we go back to it again. But there's too much money at stake. I guess they're not going to stop when you've still got films cracking $1 billion. They're going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what they might do is start bringing the budgets down a little bit. DC have done that, like movies like Shazam. I think they spent about $120 million on that, which is a nice realistic amount of money, because I know Marvel lie about the budgets. Marvel spend insane money on these movies, but the return is so huge. They they get the return each time, and then you sell your toys and your merch and everything on the back of that. But I do think the budgets might start trimming a little bit. I think the number of projects inevitably will have to come down. But at the same time, if you look in the bookstores, it's very interesting. Bookstores are usually about 10 years ahead of where the movies are. So what is selling in the bookstore tends to be the films 5 or 10 years down the line you're going to see. So that's certainly the way it works at Marvel. And the comic book graphic novel sort of business is really diversifying. Obviously, manga is a gigantic thing now. And you're just seeing the kind of comics you wouldn't have imagined 10, 20 years ago. So that's going to be really interesting when you start seeing that stuff appearing on Netflix or Amazon or in cinemas or whatever. It's a brilliant time to be doing this job. I think it's always been a fun job, but I think the guys who invented this industry, I think, wouldn't believe where it is now. I think when I walk into HMV or one of these big stores, and I just see all this Marvel and DC and independent comic merch, it's this is the world I dreamed of when I was 10, it's fantastic.
Thanks for watching this clip. Now, if you're interested in supporting my channel, then feel free to take a look at my latest novel, Dark Harvest, which is available to pre-order on Amazon now. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.